Let's talk about Grizzlies Warriors, which I think is obviously a really fun series, maybe the most interesting one going right now. We saw a monster Ja Morant performance last night, 47 piece. So Jason, given that level that he's playing right now, is Ja the best player in that series?
Ooh, no, but it's close. And I never would have thought that it'd be close. Steph is playing pretty well in this playoff run so far. 27.3 points, 4.1 rebounds, 5.6 assists, 47% from the field, 39% from three, 76% from the line. Obviously, with Steph, his playoff 3-point percentage has always kind of been just a touch under 40. So you could make a case that, after that slump that he had earlier in this season and him coming back from this injury, he actually looks pretty close to what he was before. The thing with Steph, the one leg up that Ja has, because Steph has a bunch of clear advantages over Ja Morant. I think that even though Ja is averaging over 10 assists per game in this postseason, I think that Steph is better at generating quality looks for his teammates. Steph's playmaking doesn't manifest in terms of assists. Steph's playmaking manifests in terms of defensive attention that he absorbs and consistent 4-on-3 opportunities for his teammates, right? So, I think that Steph still is a definitively better offensive engine in terms of creating shots for his teammates. I think that Steph is a significantly better defensive player, and that's a huge factor here. Golden State has really struggled with finding ways to attack Ja. That's something they're going to have to figure out as the series progresses. They've been hiding him. But the problem is Golden State's not a great rim pressuring team in terms of isolation situations. They get rim pressure off of attacking closeouts when their guards gather attention. So they don't have a guy that's just going to consistently stare Ja Morant in the face and drive to the basket on him the way that Anthony Edwards did in the last round, right? So that's their issue right now. But Ja's defensive issues are real issues, and I expect Steve Kerr to find ways to attack him over the course of the series. So Steph has a bunch of clear advantages there. His experience, his decision-making, I'm always going to favor, especially guys that have been there a bunch of times. So Steph is the best player in this series. But the one swing factor and the one thing that Ja has on Steph right now, and it also happens to be their best chance to win the series, is what you saw last night. That supreme unguardability in single coverage situations. Not that Steph doesn't have some of that, he does. But even when Steph was at his absolute peak, his individual shot creation in isolation situations, especially in the playoffs, was not quite at the level of some of his peers at the top of the league. Kevin Durant's, the LeBrons, guys like that, right? So, and again, that's not a slander to Steph. He's very good at that specific skill. He's just a touch below his peers at the top of the league. Well, Ja literally just walked down one of the best defenses in the league last night. Every single possession, top of the key, 1-4 low, isolation, and won a game doing it. And getting whatever shot he wanted in the process. And during that whole stretch, he could have just pulled up a three every time if he wanted to. And there will be a point in his career where he adds that to his game and it becomes even more problematic. So again, Steph's the best player in the series, but it's close. Yeah. And the reason why it's close is Ja is flashing that supreme unguardability in individual situations, even at the top levels of playoff basketball. And I do think that that's a very valuable asset. But again, his decision-making is an issue. It's 42% from the field, 30% from three. That's a big part of that is just he takes tough shots sometimes. He settles a lot of the time. He gets a little too caught up in the moment and will try crazy stuff from time to time. That's all inexperience. And those are all advantages that go to Steph. But again, that's the one area where Ja has an advantage.
I totally agree with you being on the Steph side of this, but I also totally agree with you on the Ja advantage. And I think that's always been one of the most interesting things in gauging Steph's value. It's that he can have such a tremendous impact without even having to touch the ball, right? By just existing, his gravity, the attention he demands at all times. But at the same time, it's like you said, some guys are just much better at directly imposing themselves. And very few people right now are better at that than Ja, who can just go at you athletically over and over and over again and challenge your best guy on the perimeter and win that matchup and force your defense to bring help. And now guys have to rotate. And it's just like every time he drives, it feels like he can kick out to somebody. But I totally agree. I mean, these have been two really impressive games from Ja, but there's some things that are unsustainable. I mean, he can really get into the lane at will, but he's made 9 threes in these 2 games. You know, when he's doing that, it's like, yeah, he probably is the best player in the series because Ja making 4.5 threes a game is like what could be missing there. But I guess the T-Wolves, the guy shot sub 39% from the field. He was 20% from 3. He had some issues with turnovers. So I would say it's still in my mind, just over a larger sample size. But like, there's no denying that Ja is point blank one of the most unguardable guys one-on-one in the league right now.
Yeah, you know, the Minnesota thing was interesting because we saw the Pat Beverly the tweet where he's like, well, you didn't see him score 47 against us. And like, which is like, dude, like, like you have to understand, that it doesn't come off with the public the way you think it does. You know what I mean? But again, we talked about it a lot on the show. Minnesota was one of the best perimeter contained teams in this league. And so they did a much better job of positioning themselves between Ja and the basket, and he struggled. And so, you know, and that kind of like versatility and being immune to specific situations is what separates a guy like Steph from a guy like Ja. It's what separates the top tier guys from the guys that are in the tier right below. You know, like right. For instance, like Steph will encounter defensive matchups that make him struggle in certain ways, just like Ja did in the first round. But that's where his all-world gravity, in addition to what he does on the defensive end of the floor, and in his addition to like his ability to have these little flurries where teams lose track of him and then he'll get hot and make, 12 points in 4 minutes or whatever it is. Those kinds of things are what allow him to heavily impact the game when he's struggling. Whereas like when you're watching that series in the first round with Ja, like he looked straight up flummoxed at certain points in the series. Now, he did what was necessary to win the series, so I don't want to undercut that at all. What you're talking about with that supreme offensive unguardability, it's the same thing with Joel Embiid. Like, look at how much different that Philadelphia team looks when everybody's operating in traditional coverages, whereas when Joel Embiid is on the floor, he just is such a problem with unguardability that he's consistently warping your defense with the way you have to guard him. So Ja gives you some of that as well. And that's, again, it's a great foundational skill. But the difference between this Ja and peak Ja in his prime is Ja will be a better decision maker, a much better defensive player. He'll have a little bit more heft to him so he doesn't have issues with strength. And he's going to fill those things out, just like Steph did as he got older. But right now, Steph is just the smarter, he's good. I expect, especially as this series progresses, for Steph to have more impact than Ja.
Yeah, I would agree. But it is remarkable how Ja we saw it in last year's playoffs, really. He is just willing to go such absolute takeover mode for an entire game. I mean, obviously he scored 30 a game in last year's playoffs, but like his playmaking impact is up in these playoffs. He's over 10 assists a game. I think he's taken 30 shots in each of the last 2 games, or I'm pretty sure 31 in each. So it's just a crazy willingness to just keep coming at you like we talked about.